I'm an officer, a lieutenant.
I come in here and I witness. I come and have coffee and I sit down at a table and people come and talk with me about their lives.
I started with the Chattanooga Community Kitchen as a caseworker in our transitional family program in 2004.
I'm a case manager, life skills advisor.
Well, here at the 614, just pretty much am the pastor, administrator, preacher, evangelist, counselor. So we kind of do it all.
We have a program, it's called the 614. What we try to do is help people whose lives have been destroyed. And we try to help them rebuild them, spiritual, financial, and physical.
I started officially working with Relevant Hope 18 months ago. Now I'm a volunteer and I work with Relevant Hope, but I was a client too. So I know both sides of it. And in the night shelter, I slept on the floor here. I was a client.
I came here and I volunteered for a long time, and I went through the soldier program. I enjoy working with Relevant Help. I want to get more involved with them.
But I was homeless, living in a tent, helping other homeless people.
If anyone does Matthew chapter 10, they might find themselves homeless like I am right now.
I've been volunteer with Salvation Army about 25 years. I've seen people needing some help, love, or someone can reach out and care for them. What made me come in to do this, wasn't looking for a paycheck behind it. It was just something that God wanted me to do.
When I first came to the Salvation Army, I was in need myself, struggling with drugs and alcohol. And somebody told me about the Salvation Army, so I went to one of their programs, different ministries called the ARC, Adult Rehabilitation Center, and it was a 9-month program for me.
I was homeless for 3 years, under bridges, living in tents, living in the woods, staying at the community kitchen.
I successfully completed the program and just never really felt to go back to my old lifestyle.
I used to be a heavy drinker myself, so I decided to get off into something to reject me from that, because I didn't want to keep on drinking myself to death, because if I had her, I might have left this world for my mom did, so I had to put it down.
I'm a rogue preacher, and I walked from Dallas to Mexico hitchhiking, getting rides along the way. Then I went to Mexico, then I went to Pennsylvania, then I went to Ohio, Minnesota, and Georgia, and now I'm in Tennessee. Oftentimes I do find myself at the Salvation Army or at various homeless shelters along the way.
My daughter's disabled and her check paid our bills. So when she was taking that cut off, all finances for me. And I was out of work at the time because I was a full-time caregiver because my daughter is handicapped.
I literally lived on Holtzclaw and 3rd Street Bridge back 8 years ago, 2008 actually, on the bridge next to the zoo by McCallie. And then I lived in a tent behind Gunbarrel Road next to the Windsong.
I moved in with my dad and his landlord was not very nice. Told him he had to put me on the lease or put me out. And he refused to put me on the lease because of bad choices I had made in my addiction, which caused him to not trust me. So we packed up all my stuff and he dropped me off on the corner of 11th Street.
I had a ex-boyfriend that he was very abusive, and he had gotten out of jail. And this was it was in December of 2011. He came and he kidnapped me and he tied me up in the woods for 3 days. The 3rd day he had untied me. It was in the middle of the night and he pushed me into the fire. Luckily I didn't get my whole body in there. It was just my feet. I had to walk a mile through the woods and then a mile down the highway to get to a payphone. And I got air flighted from Dade City to Tampa General, and I was in the burn unit there. And I was there for 10 days. And he showed up at the hospital. He had stolen a van from his cousin. He picked me up and kidnapped me from the hospital and drove up here. He had got a room at the Cascade Motel and tied me up there for 10 days. then we went and stayed in the van, and he was parked behind the hotel, and a cop had came by and ran the tag, and the only good thing that he ever did was tell them I had nothing to do with it. So my charges got dropped, and then they just kind of released me back out into Chattanooga. I know no one here. I have no way of getting in contact with any of my family because I don't know anybody's numbers. I have no phone, no nothing.
We have a 6-bed occupancy, and we offer the gentlemen advice and classes on budgeting. We have counseling. We also offer them a membership at the YMCA for their physical piece of the puzzle. And we just try to help them get back on their feet, renew their relationships with their family, also their spiritual relationships. We just try to do what we can.
Each day, at least 600 people come through the doors of the Chattanooga Community Kitchen seeking things like day shelter. We're the only place that's open 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Meals, showers, bathrooms, laundry, clothing giveaway. We give away probably around $750,000 worth of clothing and household goods every year to the folks that we serve. What we do doesn't stop with a meal, it's the hook that might draw you in. You know, we have the other urgent services like showers and bathrooms, mail. If you think about it, and you're a person who's homeless, you have nowhere to receive mail, nowhere to use as an address to get your ID, nowhere to get a telephone call. So we have day center services also, which include laundry and all of the basic things that each person might do in their own home. Last year in December, actually December 14, we opened a first of its kind family shelter in this community called the McCallie Shelter for Families, and that again was in response to an urgent need of families becoming homeless, but it taking a couple or a few weeks for them to find any place that they could move into.
We deal mainly with folks that are homeless at this location. We have several ministries, but at this particular location we deal mainly with folks that are homeless, folks that are maybe addicted to certain drugs or alcohol. They may have some mental issues, but we kind of deal with a variety of different people.
Well, in the beginning we had a shelter. We had a men's program and a women's program. And we took up to 15 to 20 of each. And we had to shut down the shelters. So now we just basically have the day center here, which is for the homeless population, which consists of free coffee, free Danish. People can get a locker here for a week, computer room. They can get their mail here so they're able to have a permanent address. We have art classes Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we have karaoke on Wednesdays, and of course services on Sunday, in which we also feed lunch.
Relevant Hope was a nonprofit organization that started from a short-term mission trip. The first year they housed 33 people. I was in the first 33. Last year, in 2015, I believe the number was right at 120. They work with the VA, they work with the MASH program, they work with the mayor's office, and they've got vets housed by using the systems that are already set up into place.
And then just recently, I was working the night shelter at the community kitchen. I've only been with them through this season, since January.
We have hygiene, we'll give them hygiene. We have a job board where we keep jobs fresh every day. We have a computer lab so that they can go in and get online if they want to fill out applications or if they just want to get on the computer.
When people come in here, they come brokenhearted. Or they have no hope. They're on drugs that they can't get off of. I feel like I'm giving them hope. They come in from the street and all they see is violence.
I just come and just start a conversation with somebody. I show other people how to throw love to other people that really hurt on the inside, like a suburban. That's the type of guy I am, to help lift up people that been through some stuff. Because you can really make someone's day. You never know what's going on there. They might have a suicide commit, might want to go out and do some drugs, might want to go out and hold up a store or something like that. That can be avoided when someone can come and talk to them, release them. There's a lot of them coming to them, I'm afraid I'm so tired, I'm about to give up. What can I do? Get these bad outside of my mind. I sit and talk to them and tell them, hey, just pray about it. Go somewhere, get some volunteer hours done or something. Do it in here. I would help y'all.
You know, when we were founded in 1982, homelessness was primarily an issue of single men who were transient and moving across the country. And oftentimes they'd be from their own area, perhaps. As we've grown, we've found that homelessness has really become more of a central city thing. It's something that the vast majority of the people we serve come from within 30 miles of our location. And the people look different now. Instead of being transient single men, it's families, it's moms, it's dads, it's children. So the face of homelessness itself has drastically changed.
In 09 and 10, when I first started, there were brokers, lawyers. The economy had a bad downturn. Most people live paycheck to paycheck, so if you miss a paycheck, you're in trouble. You miss two, and you're likely to be on the street. From what I can tell, substance abuse and mental illness are the biggest contributors to homelessness. Bad luck is definitely there as well.
Really, it's very dangerous to be homeless. People think homeless folks are criminals. No, they're victims of crime, constantly victimized. The statistics nationally and in Chattanooga both prove the same thing. You are far more likely to be a victim of crime than to commit a crime if you are homeless.
People don't choose where they want to be born or choose, I didn't wake up one day and say, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be a drug addict.
The homeless community is not just 11th Street. It is not just at the community kitchen or the 614. It is not just downtown. It's in residential neighborhoods. I'm in Hickson. I lived in Hickson. There are places that people camp that you wouldn't necessarily think about.
We saw Superior Creek being shut down last year, and all these people suddenly, even though their rent was paid up to the end of the month, they're homeless. I mean, they're on the streets through no fault of their own. So things like that do happen.
We can document each year that around 3,500 to 4,000 different people will experience homelessness in Chattanooga. And that's a mind-boggling number if you actually think about it. And what's even worse about those numbers, those are just the ones we can prove. Well, at least twice that many people actually experience homelessness. When we do a point-in-time count, which is a snapshot of how many people are homeless on a given night, the numbers are usually between 650 and 700 people. But 2 to 3 times that many people are homeless on a given night, without doubt. And then if you expand homelessness to include people that are sleeping on someone else's couch, or camping in a campground, or living out of their car but in a semi-permanent area, the number gets even bigger. And then we talk about, in this community, we call it the near homeless.
The hardest thing about being homeless by far is the loneliness that's associated with being on the streets by yourself. There's really nobody to comfort you.
It was like a black hole, like a black cloud over me every day. Depression. I remember I had depression before for years, and it came back. And it was like I found myself fending every day, without peace, looking for people for peace.
Mostly it seems to be drug users and veterans maybe have fallen into drugs or for some reason weren't able to integrate into society, so they frequent the Salvation Army and the homeless shelters. I find that most homeless people are nicer than your average suburban person.
Because a lot of times, homeless people, and I hate that term, I call them my outside friends and neighbors, are forgot about. They're looked down upon because they're less than nothing, is how society normally sees them, and it sees them as outcasts, as people who are drug addicted or who have mental issues, or they choose to live this way. Well, that's all true. The majority of the people down here have either an addiction to a substance or something. They are mentally unstable. Homelessness is a term to categorize people, but they're people. They're people first and homeless second.
The situation of homelessness is one that is most stressful for people. It's probably one of the hardest things a human being can encounter in their life. the uncertainty of where I'm going to stay tonight. Imagine if you have children, the uncertainty of how I'm going to protect that child and provide for that child. When we talk about this kind of stress, it's not the level of stress of, did I get a good grade, or is my boss going to like the project I submitted? The stress we're talking about in this is fundamental stress. It's so extreme it actually creates trauma. Okay? The trauma of being a homeless individual in America today is incredibly substantial. Homelessness isn't drunks, crazy people, criminals. That's not what causes homelessness. Homelessness is lack of housing. Now, sometimes people might find it because of something they've done or a choice that they've made, but without fail, the top 3 reasons of homelessness are always unemployment, eviction, and domestic violence. Sometimes they go in a different order than that. And when I hear someone say, I lost my job, I don't blame them necessarily. Perhaps they did something bad and they lost it because of that, but perhaps they were laid off. I don't know why they lost their job, but I know that something happened and they lost their job. I hear them say, I was evicted. Well, many of the folks that we work with were not evicted for paying or failure to pay rent. They were evicted because the house was condemned, or the person that was renting it to them had it foreclosed. And I'm pretty certain we don't typically blame a victim of domestic violence for the situation that they found themselves in. Naturally, in all of those conditions or situations, you perhaps had a role in it. You made choices in it. But that's what got you into the situation of homelessness. So why is it that people look at you as a bad person because you're homeless, if those are the causes?
It's kind of heartbreaking because it's like I want to help these people, but I can't help them because I don't have the means to help them. Like last night I drove by just because I was concerned. There was a lot of people on the last day. We would ask what their plans were, and there's a lot of them that didn't know what their plans were. And so last night I drove by, and one of the girls, Miss Shirley, she's in a wheelchair. I'd seen her sitting on the porch, and I drove by and I just started crying because, I mean, I wish there was a way that I could help. And to see an older person like that stuck out and with nowhere to go, it's just heartbreaking. And everybody says, well, they've had 3 months to figure out what they're gonna do. It's not that easy. They need a little more than just, they know that they've gotta go, but they need someone to kind of guide them and help them, and they don't have that.
But what I see now is I see folks that have mental issues, and that could be caused by a variety of reasons. It could have been the way that they were raised, maybe they were abused, who knows? And the other is drugs and alcohol. And you do have those that might be only a paycheck away from being homeless.
And I think that is what's disturbing the most, is the situations that are just totally unfair. Someone who came from a background where they don't really have a chance. Their parents didn't really treat them with a lot of affection and a lot of love. Therefore, they don't have the tools to do the same when they get older.
If someone were to come to me and say, I'm homeless, I'm living, I have nowhere to go, first off, we would find them a safe place to go.
I think that people, if they pray about it, God will guide them to the right places. They can't do it on their own.
Staying focused to try to get out of the situation. Because, like I said before, you kind of get hanging out with everybody else and you just kind of lose track of things.
If you see a homeless person, somebody flying a sign, instead of giving them money, take the time and go buy them food and sit down and talk to them. Just talk to them. That's all people want, is to be treated like people.
Why are they in the situation that they're in? So we got to try to get to the root of the problem. And if they say, well, I'm an alcoholic, well then I'll say to them, then, you need to get sober. That has to be your #1 priority, is getting sober. And we would, invite them to come to our program and come in, and we'll help them do that. We don't just say go to 3 meetings and get a sponsor. But we make sure they go to 3 meetings and that they get a sponsor. We make sure that they are doing anger management classes. We make sure that they're doing budgeting classes. So we try to give them a foundation so that they can build off.
It's our job to rebuild that confidence and to facilitate the needs that they have and the resources that we can make available.
But even when you're meeting those basic needs, at that point you're really servicing a person who's homeless. You're helping them remain homeless even. And so in that same day center, we have caseworkers. The caseworkers are there to help people find jobs. We have a permanent housing person. And once there, the job's not done. You then actually have caseworkers who work with them to stabilize them in that permanent housing so they stay there and succeed on their own and no longer need that help.
I always tell them to put my name on their application, Fred Holland. I give my phone number. They done been through alcohol, drugs, or whatever. They tired of it. They want a job. They want to be strong. They want to do the right thing. They tired of going to jail.
I tell them, especially if it's a male, go to the Salvation Army. They've got a program. It'll help you get on your feet, and you'll have, some other guys that you can talk to.
Places like the Homeless Healthcare Center, it's directly across the street. It's one of our closest partners. They offer sobriety treatment. They offer mental health care. They offer primary care. Those are things we don't do, but in that continuum, they're critical in ensuring someone comes from the street into permanent housing and stays there.
The missing pieces that I see are transportation, bus passes. I had somebody, and I can't tell you how many times this happens during the week, come in today and say, I really want to look for a job, but I have no transportation. We need a resource for bus passes, for transportation.
I think they need people that are actually there to care about them and that are actually wanting to help them get off the street. There's a lot of people that have been out for a while and they're comfortable and they don't want to be inside. But then there's the other people that are new outside and they're not sure what to do. But when they hang out with the other people, then they kind of get lost in the crowd and everybody gets treated equally, which that's what everybody's supposed to do. But at the same time, there's some people that need to be treated a little bit different just because they want the help and they're just kind of being put to the side just with everybody else.
There's always more we can be doing. The biggest two gaps in services in the community, Chattanooga area as a whole. The first one is emergency shelter. But where do you go if you became homeless tonight? You're a single guy. Okay, where are you going to stay? We really only have one place, and it's the Chattanooga Rescue Mission. They have, I think, 44 beds for men. All right? Number 45, you're out of luck. During the coldest months of the year, we open our overnight cold weather shelter. The warming shelter can accommodate about 200 people. But that's not something that's year-round, number one, and it's not really a solution for shelter. It is instead a place to save lives, to keep people from freezing to death. So it's difficult to find a solid, safe place to sleep at night if you are a single person who is homeless. Knoxville has an 800-bed facility. Okay, so there is a great need here for shelter.
Another piece of the puzzle I see for people that have started work and are working second shift, they can't get into the shelters here in town. But if you work a second shift job and need to sleep during the daytime, you're out of luck. You're almost penalized because you're working.
There are a lot of great programs in between that will help you then get to permanent housing. But the next gap, the second big gap, is affordable permanent housing. So we've got all these wonderful programs in the middle, but we've got the Alpha and the Omega, which are both broken. Where do you go tonight? And how do you afford to stay permanently housed? And really it's good and it's bad, because the shelter issue is something we can solve. It's a huge issue, but we can solve it. The permanent housing issue is actually mostly because we're such a great city to live in. People want to live here, so it keeps rent high, it keeps housing costs high. We need to figure out a better way to control some of those expenses so that we can have folks that are in startup mode being able to live here as well and to be permanently housed.
But there are some folks that could use a place to stay. We don't have that here. We do have a facility that'll hold 6 men. We don't have a place for females.
Somebody need to reach out and care for them. Well, they want to keep looking back like something after them, something out to get them. If anything out to get you, let it be love. Let somebody, hey, come on, bro, come on, sister, let's go. Come on, y'all, let's do this together as one family.
We are very blessed to be in an incredibly philanthropic, incredibly religious and spiritual community where people want to support people in need. They want to help their brothers and sisters in the community who might not be as fortunate as they are, and they want to make sure that they're being helped well.
How many of us go to a restaurant and spend $2 or $3, $4, $5 on a glass of tea or something like that? But for people in need, a $2 bus ticket can really make a difference. The least we can do as people that are blessed.
We're a non-governmental agency. We're an agency of locally founded, locally funded, and served, really our governing board is made up of local churches and individuals who are concerned and interested. Almost all of our funding comes from John and Jane Public, as you say, from people like you and me, next door neighbors, all around the community.
These people here have really helped me. I was a loner for years. And now that I've come here, it's like people, I've trusted people, I've opened my heart to people here, and I'm more socializing now.
I don't do it for any self-gratification because it's what I'm called to do.
A lot of donations come here, and Salvation Army don't joke around. They get them closed out to them folks.
To me, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to serve them.
I love them.
It gave me hope and gave me a reason to go on instead of just drinking and hanging out with everybody.
It feels good when you know you're helping another human being. I don't know how to describe it. It feels like I'm accomplishing my purpose in life.
You know, I just love doing this. It feels good to me. It keeps me out of trouble.
Like when I could volunteer, it was my way of giving back, and I could help other people.
And when I come around here, this family to me, nothing but family. Ain't no person over here, person over there that I don't see that everybody come through them doors. It's family to me.
But no, I really feel like this is where God wants me to be right now. And He made this opportunity available. And I feel called to try to fulfill it.
That's what I want, the people to see what we do here.